Hello, everyone. I'm so excited here today to be with Heather Shumaker, who is an author of books for children and adults. And she's also a co-host of children's books podcast, BookSmitten. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you.
We just shared before we go online that we both have snow and cold. Even we are from very different regions, but I guess winter is the same. And you are from Michigan, right?
Yes, I live in Michigan in the United States.
Yes, and here in Vilnius, it's still a very cold winter and tons of snow. So we have that in common. And then I was telling you that when I read your books, and first I came across the title, which was It's Okay Not to Share. And another one, It's Okay to Go Up the Slide. And I goes, those are the things we say very often to our children, that you have to share and it's not okay to go up the slide. And I was like, who is that superwoman who dared to say that and even name her books, and put that in the title of the book? So would you mind sharing your own journey towards those very brave titles? How did
Oh,
what's your background? What's your relationship with that?
thank you for calling it brave. I think probably it does get people's attention because everybody thinks you must teach your kids to share. Um, I I'm primarily a writer. I went to a wonderful preschool when I was 4 years old and 5 years old in Ohio. And this preschool had a different way of trusting children and guiding children. And I found it when I was a child very respectful. I felt very loved and respected at this school, but hardly anybody else does things this way. So my mother taught at this preschool for 40 years. And that's one reason why I know the philosophy so well, is because even though I left the preschool, she stayed there for 4 more decades. Now, when I had my own children, I looked around for a preschool just like it because I had such a wonderful feeling of this was a place where I could explore and I could be myself and I could learn limits. I couldn't just do anything. I had to respect other people. And I looked around and there were no preschools in my area that were anything remotely like this, that really respected children's play and the ability to solve conflicts and learn that skill, which I think really, when it comes down to it, what is early childhood all about? If they can learn two things,
Right.
the whole world is theirs. One of them is what to do with all their big feelings, all their big emotions.
Mm.
And the other one is how to solve conflicts when there's a problem that comes up. Maybe both children want the same toy or whatever the problem. Lots of little problems will come up. That's what being human is. And they will come up in our families and in our workplaces and in our countries and, at all levels. But learning how to solve conflicts and learning how to cope with those feelings is the most important work of childhood. And I think sharing gets right at both of those. It gets at those big feelings kids have and a conflict of two people wanting the same thing at the same time. And if we can guide children through that, they're both learning incredible skills of peace and diplomacy.
So did you learn at your preschool, like it's okay not to share? Was someone telling you that? Like, it's okay not to share?
It's interesting. The title of the book, nobody said to me, it's okay not to share. That's more of the message for the adults. For the children, we were told things like, you can play with that toy as long as you want.
Wow.
And when you're finished, remember that Sarah is waiting for it. So you're learning awareness of others. You're learning that you're not the only one in the world, but you're learning that you have rights to continue exploring what you're doing right now. And the child who's waiting, instead of, this is what happens usually, adults will see a child waiting and we get nervous. And we pounce and we say, you've had that toy a long time, give it to your friend. Well, sometimes it's not a friend. We get them mixed up using these words, but we say, be nice and share. And so we take it away from them. And when something's taken away from us, it hurts. It feels terrible. And we don't want to do that again. So young children, when something's taken away from them, they're going to think, ooh, sharing is bad. I don't want to share, and I won't do it when my mother's not watching, or I won't do it when the teacher's not watching. Children have natural generosity that is developing. We actually set them back and make them develop that generosity more slowly when we force them to share. And also, what are we teaching the kid who says, Mama, she's not sharing? And they're trying to get us to manipulate and step in. They're not learning impulse control. They're not learning how to wait. They're not learning how to handle their angry feelings, their frustrated feelings, their jealous feelings. It's hard to wait. And I think as adults, we're very scared of the child who has to wait. We are scared that that child will cry. We're scared that child will scream. We're scared that child might kick and hit and, cause a problem for us. So we just want everything to be easy. Well, life isn't about easy. It's about teaching the kids the skills. So having that child wait is a fantastic skill. We're doing them a favor by helping them wait. And we're there for them. We don't ignore them. We say, oh gosh, it's so hard to wait. What can you're mad that Sarah still has the truck. You want to use that truck right now, but she's busy using it. She can use it as long as she wants. And when it's your turn, you can use it as long as you want. But 5 minutes takes a long time. That can be hard for a child. So helping them wait, helping them deal with their mad feelings is much more important than just giving them the toy and giving them that instant gratification. It teaches both children. One learns to set boundaries and learn limits, saying, I'm not done yet. You can have it when I'm done. And the other one learns to wait and cope with anger and jealousy. These are such huge skills. And then when the child is finished playing with the toy, she can run over to the other child and you can remind her, remember, she was waiting. Run over to the other child and say, here you go. And that's when she feels on the inside how good it feels to share. And when it feels good, the brain wants to repeat that, right? Then they'll share when you're not watching, because they remember, even if they don't remember consciously, their brain will remember for them. That felt good. I like that feeling. And that's the natural way of generosity. It feels good when you're not forced to do it.
And it's not about looking nice, but you're really feeling generous when you have finished. And I go and I share, and that's from the heart. And even the kid who is playing, if you every time you start playing and then you have this threat over you, like, I don't know how much time you have, like maybe it's just a minute and I'm gonna have to give it away. You don't even, go and stay in the moment. You always afraid that maybe it's already the time and I need to hurry up. And then it's wasted, right? There is no rest in the play because you are always looking around your shoulder and maybe my sister is coming or maybe my mom is coming and this is the time I need to give it away.
Exactly. And you raise a really important point, because children's play is very deep and sophisticated. It can be if they are not rushed, if they feel safe. If they don't feel safe, something could be taken out of their hands at any minute. They're going to play at a superficial level. But if they feel safe, they can really engage and do the work they're meant to do the play they're meant to do. Yeah.
And it's funny because we ask from children what we don't do as adults. I mean, imagine friends came over and then you're reading a book and suddenly your husband would say, like, you must share your book. Now it's our friends' time and you must give your book to your friends. We don't do that with adults. And then we force when we force our children to do that, and then we blame them or we call them, you're not being polite. This is not friendly. You're not being nice. So yeah, it's hard. So when do you really have all those insights that you share from the very young age because you were raised that way, or did you break throughs later on in life and you?
No, most of these are ideas that the teachers at my preschool came up with. and I interviewed them. So I am not the brilliant one. I'm just the one that wrote it down into a book. It's all based in child development. So some of the things about child development is a child must own before they can give. So you can't, even if the ownership is of a stick, right, or a puddle, it's not, has to be buying it from a store type of ownership. But if a child feels they have control of the stick or the toy, then they can give. But if they never feel that they have control over it, then they can't experience giving. Yeah. No, I was raised this way. And one thing that children don't have trouble with it. Actually, kids understand this type of sharing. It's really taking a turn. So you can have it as long as you want, and then the next child can have it as long as they want. And that's a very safe scenario. And the kids understand that, even very young children, 2 years old. But the adults get scared because when we say those words, you can have it as long as you want to play with it. What if they play with it longer than we feel good? Because then we get nervous and we stop them and say, oh, no, that's too long. Because how long will a child play with a toy? It could be when they know someone's waiting. It could be 1 minute. It could be 1 hour, or it could be 1 day, or it could be 1 week. But when the child is finished, they will be completely finished. They will, if they, I mean, they have to go to sleep if you're playing. But at my childhood preschool, I could play with a toy all day. And at the end of the day, when it's time to go home, the teacher would ask me, are you finished playing with this yet? And I would sometimes say no. And then they would write on a piece of paper, save for Heather. And it would be taped onto the toy. So if a child came in the next day and arrived 5 minutes before I arrived, the teacher would say, oh, there's a note on this. I'm saving this for Heather. It's so respectful. I felt respected. The next morning, I might come in a different mood. And the teacher would say, I saved this for you. That makes me feel good that somebody cared enough to do that. But I might not care anymore. I might say, oh, I'm finished with it. Okay, well, I know that Jack was waiting. Oh, I'll give it to him. Then everybody's feeling good. Jack feels good that he was remembered. I feel good that it was saved for me. But it can go overnight, is what I'm saying. And you have to be prepared if you're going to change your ways and try this with your children. You have to be prepared to have very, very long turns. Once the child is comfortable with feeling safe and long turns, the turns tend to get shorter and shorter and shorter over time because they're no longer looking over their shoulder. They trust you. They trust that they will be respected. And so it's not such a big deal. Oh, sure, you can have this. I don't need it right now. There's a lot, the turns get shorter. The awareness of others gets bigger. The generosity gets bigger.
I remember with my daughter, she was maybe 2, and we were going to a park. And we never got to the park because we stopped at the gate. And then she was opening, closing, opening, closing. And I was interested enough to stay long enough to see what happens. And then it lasted maybe 20 minutes. But when something shifted inside her, I could see that she was done. That she was trying some, physics, seeing how it works. I'm opening, it closes. And then opening, it closes again. And as soon as she got the message and some brain connection was made in her head, she was like, I could feel something softened inside. She was, I'm done. So I guess it's the same thing with playing with toys. So, like the Legos, whatever it is, if someone takes that from me away and I'm not finished yet, it could be very frustrating because I was building something inside my head and my brain, and that connection didn't go well because someone took it earlier than expected. But when I'm finished by myself and I feel the satisfaction that, yes, I something, got very clear for me in my head. And then I'm this generous person running to my friend and saying, yeah, I'm done. Now it's your turn.
Yes, yes. And what's interesting is that children can manage this type of turn taking by themselves once
Mhm.
they have practice. I think it takes up a lot of the parents' time to always be figuring out whose turn is it? Have you had it long enough? And we try to be like a judge and a policeman and all these things. It's exhausting. It doesn't feel good.
Mm.
And we could do other things because children can do this. Once they've had practice, they can, even children who can't speak, they can learn to put up their hand. If everybody knows the rules, they can follow them. And I have seen 4-year-olds who are comfortable with this system, and they will say, let's say there's one swing or one big toy like that. You can't, maybe you can have more than one pencil, but you're not going to have lots and lots of the big things. So there's only one swing and 5 children all want to be on it. I've seen the 4-year-old say, wait, I will make a waiting list. And they get a piece of paper and they get a pen. These are 4-year-olds. They cannot write. Some of them can do the first letter of their name, but they can't read. They can't write, but they've seen an adult make a waiting list. And so they grab a pen and they write the first person in line and then the next person. And this is all math skills, the sequence of it, and letter skills. And the other children can't necessarily read what the sign says, but they know it's a waiting list for sharing the swing. They understand what blob or color is theirs, and they will go get the next kid when they're finished. And they'll
Wow.
say, there's a waiting list for this. And, Jack is next, and they'll go get Jack, and no one else will get on the swing because they know their turn will come, and they're the third name down on the list.
Amazing.
Or you can spend all your time dealing with these fights and squabbles over sharing. It's long term so much better to teach the big skills, even though it might mean more tears at the beginning. But once you get the trust established, the respect is lifelong, and the children begin to trust you more as adults, and they begin to trust each other more too.
Sometimes it could be faster and easier to deal in the moment, but as you say, it's not a long-term strategy, because then you need to be there every time there is a conflict, and you need
Yeah.
to be the adult who would gonna say who is right and who is wrong and what to do now.
Right. And
Um,
sometimes the adult is wrong. Sometimes we don't see everything that happens, and we can't see everything that happens. But if you can teach children the skills of how to sort through their conflicts, sometimes you see 2 children who are upset, they're crying, they're mad at each other, and you don't know what happened. You can say, wow, you both look upset. I wonder what happened. I wonder what she did that you didn't like. Oh, well, she threw sand at me. Well, she walked on my painting. I mean, you have to get the specifics out, and then they can set limits on each other and sort out, well, I won't walk on your painting anymore. Well, what if we move the painting here? You can start to do that problem solving. But starting with, what is it? You look mad. What is it that she did that you didn't like? And help them sort through that. They begin to learn how to do that themselves. But it's hard. It takes practice. And we can't expect them to solve conflicts if they don't experience it themselves. Talk
Actually,
to the kids.
it's very easy to understand because it's simple, but it's very hard to do because it goes all against our adult world control instinct, I guess, when we feel in charge of every small situation in our children's life. So it's easy to understand, but when you have to do that, just to take long turns, to be patient, not to interfere or not to intervene immediately, then it's hard because we have these impulses and we have to control them
Mhm.
ourselves.
It's very hard. It gets even harder when you do it in a public park or a
Oh
public
yeah.
place. If you do it in your own house, it can be hard, right? Until you get used to it. But then when you feel other people are watching you. So my advice to people is start in your home.
Mm.
Make one change, try it out, get comfortable with it, get the kids trusting it. And then sometimes you can say, when you go to a park, well, we take long turns at home, but here we're taking short ones because not everybody knows our rules. But then you start talking to other parents, make friends, then you can expand the number of people, or maybe with your uncles and aunts and things. But it helps to do it where nobody's watching you at first and establish that trust with your child. And then make sure you announce when you're in a new space to say, gosh, we usually take long turns, but at this museum, there's 20 children waiting and we need to take a short turn. And if they're used to long turns, they understand this is different. It's not how we do things, but they can understand, they can cope with that if you warn them ahead of time.
Okay. It's okay to go up the slide. What is that about? Is that about being a rebel and
Both. I think it's literally going up the slide, because children are wired to play. You've talked about already about how their brains need to make connections, and they need to play. They need to take small risks to try things with their bodies. They need to gain courage. They need to play games with other children. And when you're out at a playground with a slide, there is no right way to play with the slide. But if one child is coming down and one child is going up, that's a conflict. And so you need to help them stop and sort out the conflict. You may even need to move your child if somebody might get hurt, but then have them talk like any conflict. You both want the truck at the same time. You both are trying to use the slide at the same time in a different way. But if we stop, they will come up with a solution. If we try to stop them going up, we're breaking a lot of potential games, and more kids are interested in going up than going down if the adults will get out of the way. And some very creative games children at the playground will get involved if maybe there's a lava monster or there's something you have to climb up the slide to get away. Some of it's about experimenting with what your body can do and the challenge of it, like climbing a tree. Kids want to climb. Most kids want to climb. And it's something that it's very natural. Their bodies are telling them to do it. And it's very good for them to take small risks like that. So it's a conflict like any others, but because it's in a public space and because there's a potential someone can get hurt, kids do not like to get hurt. They do not. But we don't give them the opportunity to think through that sometimes. We just make a rule and say, down the slide. So it's one that we almost always pounce on, but if the world were run by kids, they would definitely be going up the slide. And I think the title of the book is because many of the ideas that I'm putting forward are about changing the system or suggesting a new way of looking at school or technology or whatever, strangers, whatever it might be, looking at a different way. So it's rebelling and going up the slide. So it has the two meanings.
I guess it's very strong because it's, usually we have all those rules. Some of them are for safety, but some others are about our adult comfort, I guess. So we wouldn't get, like annoyed or worried. And then it's just easier for us that way. And we say to our children, don't go up the slide. We mean, what if you get hurt? Then we have to go to, I don't know, to the doctor, and then there's the whole thing. And I don't want to do that. I just want to be here, calm, at peace, and just please go down the slide, meaning it would be easier for me as a mom or as a dad. But then if we also, I guess, implicitly telling kids that you need to conform, like you need to fit, there's not okay to be different. There's not okay to do things in different way. There's not okay to use this slide in other ways. But then we kill somehow inner curiosity and creativity, I guess. Because when they go to school and even in college, we ask them to be creative. We ask them to be, to think for themselves. And here we are in this park saying, no, you should do as you are told. And there are situations where it's apropos, but there are plenty of others where we could just let them explore, and they even might get hurt. And I mean, I guess that's also okay, because, it's the part of exploring and also feeling your body and how you feel and what is the risk and how do you feel in your body doing, maybe going up the slide, it's scary for my mom, but not for my kid.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's all about balance, the balance of making sure that you're having the creativity, but not hurting other people's experience. So sometimes on a very crowded playground where there's just too many people going down, I might say, wow, it's crowded today. This is not a safe day to go up the slide. So they can understand that it's different. If you come to the park every day, maybe it's a really sunny day and there's just too many children out.
Mhm.
But if there's a small group of kids who can play together and interact together, um, that's a different situation. So balance. It's not always okay to go up the slide, but it can be. And by the way, it's a playground. What is the purpose of a playground? It's to play, right? It's not a control ground. It's not to control is the purpose of this area. It's to play.
Mhm.
Um, and if you find that there are too many children in your neighborhood that you just can't have a good time with going up a slide, well, maybe there's a park that has trees. Maybe they can climb on a log. It doesn't have to be playground equipment. It's just the experience of learning how to climb and being creative with what they find in their environment.
Mhm.
So, and another thing about safety, as you said, it's okay if they get hurt. Well, yes, we hope it's just small bumps. We really hope it's not bigger than that. Um, but we find that children get more safe when they take some risks and understand their body. So
Mhm.
climbing up the slide lets them learn, what is it my body can do? Oh, I can climb up the slide today because I have my good shoes on. But yesterday, when I was wearing my sandals or my flip flops, it
Mhm.
didn't work. That's interesting. Or, oh, today it didn't work because it was rainy and it's a wet surface. Oh, they're learning things. And maybe they learn, in the summer, I couldn't do this, but now it's October and I can do it. My body has changed. My muscles are stronger. So the more they experience what they can do and what the limits of what they can do, the more they understand how to keep their own body safe. Because kids don't like to get hurt. And sometimes you can say, if you're feeling nervous, you can say, do you feel, wow, you're really high. Do you feel safe? Because sometimes kids forget, oh my gosh, look how. And so if you're feeling nervous, ask them that. But they like to climb. Say,
Mhm.
you're really high. Are you feeling safe? Look at your feet. What can you hold on to? So that they gain that body awareness to keep themselves safe instead of being we call it bubble wrapped up
Mhm.
in plastic. That's the parent is always in charge of their safety when the adult is always taking responsibility for the child's safety. The child doesn't have to think about that anymore, and they
And
get
then
less sick.
I get somehow they get disconnected from their bodies, because if every time you look for clues outside, like, is mom looking okay? Okay, then that means I can do that. But we can misjudge. I mean, in both ways. So it's good to let them at their own pace, and obviously depending on their age, but to get little by little confident in what they can and they cannot do, and then be there in case, like, it's very a steep slide, we can just be next to them, like, and there is a need, we can, I guess, grab them, protect them, or even hold them.
Mhm. Yeah.
What do you find the most difficult to apply, maybe in your own home? What's the we have Each of us have, like, some of us are more sensitive to limits, others are more sensitive to sharing, others, I don't know, have other um triggers. What is yours, like a personal trigger? What gets to you the most?
Well, I'll answer, but to be honest, most of these I'm very, very comfortable because this
I
is how
envy you, I envy you.
but this is how I saw the world. Also, my brother is older, so he was the experiment, and my mother was very confident by the time I was the second child, so she knew how to do all these things. So I was raised from birth with all these ideas, and the school I went to was the same as at home as far as the philosophy. And then I've been thinking about, so I was very confident becoming a parent. And I think a lot of new parents are not confident. I didn't know what to do with babies. I had no idea what to do with a baby. But once the child got to be about 1.5, I was very confident. However, despite that, I suppose some of the very traditionally boy play, like wrestling, really rough wrestling. Some girls love this too. I did as a child. I loved roughhousing and wrestling with my dad and my brother. And it used to make my mother get nervous, and she'd just go in another room because she knew it was good for us, but she didn't like to watch it. And I do that a little bit too. I'm all in favor. I know it's very good for their brains and their relationships, but sometimes I need to just say, okay, you do that. It's not a fun game for me to watch. And I think that's true of a lot of women.
So you have a proof we were looking for in our parenting support group. We were discussing like, what does an adult raised that way looks? Because we want to know, like, young moms starting up about children, like, what does an adult look like who was raised that way? Does that even exist? Where we can see him? And so you have a proof.
Yes, and I have 2 stories to go along with that. One is my brother and I both raised our children the same way we were raised, which I think is the complete compliment, is very high praise. Most people will change a little bit, because, well, I like that, but I don't want to do that to my children. So we both used the same methods because we felt so respected. And the second thing is, there's a young girl who was another teacher's daughter of this school, Amira, and she started going there as a 2-year-old. She was there as a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And she learned this conflict mediation, these skills of problem solving from age 2 on. And she went on in life and realized in elementary school and high school and college that most people didn't have these skills. She was shocked. And she learned that she was very good at negotiating peace among her friends, among teachers, among anything. And so then she in college, in graduate school, decided to specialize in international relations, diplomacy, with an emphasis on Muslim and Western relations. So she's a Muslim American girl. And her family was Muslim. And she thought, well, here's some big problems internationally. And she credited her childhood preschool for her interest in studying international diplomacy.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Does that preschool continue?
Yes, it's 53 years old and it continues. You can visit in Ohio.
What's the name of a school, of preschool?
It's called the School for Young Children.
Wow.
We call it SYC, School for Young Children.
There's only one like that? I mean, they don't have other...
They don't have branches. No, it's one school, but there are many schools in many countries that have similar ideas, and they believe in play for children. They believe in helping children with their feelings. They create a place of trust and respect. Just because you're short and young doesn't mean you don't have any rights and feelings. So it's not a big corporation that has many branches, but there are similar ones here and there, not enough around the world.
I guess it's better that way when it stays small, because then you can keep the spirit. And then at the same time, it's sad because then you would like to have that for all the children in the whole world, because it's amazing. Every child would be amazed and excited to be part of this kind of preschool. Yeah, you are a little lucky.
Well, I do know that some people have told me that they read my book, It's Okay Not to Share. Then they quit their job and they started a brand new preschool based on the ideas of this book. So I know many new schools have started. It's something anybody can do if they are passionate about that. To create a school like this in Lithuania is completely possible.
Well done. Thank you for the discussion. Just tell us where can people find you, or where can they find your books, or even where we can listen to you? Because we also have a podcast, BookSmitten.
Yes. The books you can find wherever you buy books. They are
Amazon?
in English. Yeah, they're on Amazon, wherever, English-speaking bookstore. You can order them in different languages. I think they're in 7 languages. I'm sorry, not yet in Lithuanian. They are, my website is my name. So it's heathershumaker.com. And you can find me there and ask me to speak. I speak at conferences. I speak to book clubs. And I do have 2 podcasts. One is about children's, about these topics, early childhood education. It's called Renegade Rules. And the other one, and that one I've done for 5 years, so it has lots of back episodes you can listen. And the other one is a newer podcast. It's all about children's books, because I also write books for children, including a ghost story, The Griffins of Castle Cary. So I'm moving into writing more and more books for children, which I enjoy greatly.
Thank you, Heather. I'm so excited to have you here, and thank you for everything you shared and for giving the proof that those kind of adults turn all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you, Renata. Bye-bye.
Bye.